We talk tech with Carmi Levy every week at about this time, CTV tech analyst. Carmi, Liberal Convention was in Montreal about a week or so ago. The initiative came up, and I'm speaking, of course, of the government's apparent idea, and this looks like it might be moving forward. I heard Mark Miller quoted today suggesting it might. This idea of banning kids under 16 from social media. Now, I know you and I have talked about this kind of idea before. We know other countries have started this. What do you think of the initiative? And when I say banning social media, are we talking, as far as you're concerned, about banning all social media or just certain apps?
Yeah, they haven't been very specific about exactly what those apps are. They call it's a non-binding resolution, and they would place the onus on social media companies to enforce it. They didn't say which social media companies that would be, but the resolution did include AI chatbots as well. So, if we're using ChatGPT or something, then that would also be subject to some kind of age limitation. So it's a starting point. They're not saying that they want there to be an outright ban. They're saying that this is the initial point to start conversation, initiate a national discussion around whether we should follow the lead of countries like Australia that enacted a world first piece of legislation in December, Greece that has basically taken that and now they're going to do the same thing for 15 and under, effective next year, and a whole bunch of other countries. So and Mark Carney, our Prime Minister, has said he doesn't really have an opinion yet. He wants to have a fulsome conversation about it, and he wants to hear all sides of the issue. So I think that's really how it works. At a party level, the party is saying, we got to talk about this, so let's pass this thing. The government is saying it's discussing it, that they're looking at incorporating pieces of this into online harms legislation later this year. And finally, after so many years of social media expanding and, essentially taking up every minute of every waking hour of every child, we're now finally starting to do something about the toxicity that results from it. And I think that's a good thing. We're not going to see change tomorrow, but at least we're talking about it. At least the light is being, shed on all of these technologies. And it looks like Canada is finally taking this seriously.
All right. Let me move on from that. Speaking of why perhaps you might want to consider some of AI scary. Anthropic, I saw this story during the week. Anthropic's new AI model, is too dangerous, this is them admitting it, to release to the public. What is going on here?
So it is known, Anthropic, their main model is known as Claude, and they introduced a new version of it called Claude Mythos, which is their biggest, best, latest version of a large language model that is incredibly good at reasoning, at figuring stuff out, at answering questions. And as they were preparing it for release earlier this year, they realized in testing that it was so good that it was able to identify weaknesses in IT security. So, for example, let's say you're a major Canadian bank and you have all these cybersecurity applications and platforms in place to keep the bad guys out and protect our money. Well, it turns out that Claude Mythos is so good at breaking in that they didn't want to release it to the public. So they announced it saying, we realize this is a really dangerous thing. We're not going to release it to the public. Instead, we're going to partner with some of the leading technology companies, Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and we're going to give it to them. So not publicly available, but we're going to give it to the researchers at these tech companies, and we're going to have them work on better protections for this. And at the same time, here in Canada, the Canadian Financial Sector Resiliency Group, it's Canada's major banks, it's the National Bank of Canada, the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation, the Department of Finance, they all got together last week to talk about the risks and say, look, we're reaching a point with AI where it's so powerful that all these assumptions of cybersecurity may no longer apply. Let's figure something out. Let's start the conversation. So that's kind of where we're at now. We don't have an answer, but we are at the point where AI is getting good enough to be, frankly, a really good hacker, and we've got to keep our eyes open going forward.
Well, nice that they at least let people know, like major corporations, of course, who have all our data, that this stuff is out there. So at least maybe that's a positive in the story.
It sort of is, but at the same time, we're relying on the largesse of a profit-seeking American technology company. And in fairness, the code had already leaked earlier this year. So they managed to stem the leak. They managed to get it back. No damage done this time. But it's companies can make promises all the time. They can be hacked as well, and there's no guarantee that this code won't get out into the hands of what we call a bad actor or a cyber criminal or a state-sponsored hacker at some point. So, and even if Anthropic does everything that it says it's going to do, what about OpenAI? What about Google? What about Microsoft? What about all the other AI companies that are also releasing super powerful models and aren't as ethically focused? Anthropic is an ethical AI company. It was founded to be ethical, and they were concerned about the direction of AI, so it's kind of part of their culture. What about other companies that are a little bit more focused on profit? They may not feel the same way.
Yeah, interesting. All right. I love this story. Heard this during the week. Waymo, for people who don't know, the self-driving cars, which have been around the U.S. in lots of different cities, is going to be, what's the situation in Toronto? They're going to allow them to test them there and then make a decision as to whether they'll be okay?
Yeah, so in Ontario, they have something across the province called an automated vehicle pilot program. And so technology companies like Waymo, which is owned by Alphabet, which also owns Google, that they apply to this program. And then under that program, they get permission to test their autonomous vehicles on the actual public street.
Okay.
And so they want to start their pilot program in Toronto, but they have said, they didn't say which cities, but they say a number of other Canadian cities that they're also in discussions with. So possibly, I would expect that Montreal will be part of that because it is a northern city with an even more challenging winter than Toronto. Great place to test the technology, as well as going up and down Mount Royal. So, basically what this does, and it doesn't mean they're going to be on the road tomorrow, it just means they're looking for permission as they expand their global pilot program. I think this is a good thing. I'm a driver, I'm a cyclist, and I'm a pedestrian. And, how many times do we see headlines of drinking and driving, distracted driving, road rage? This is technology that is not at risk of any of those. And even though it's not perfect yet, we will still have accidents. The data shows that we have fewer accidents when autonomous vehicles are involved, and they cause less injuries and fewer fatalities. So it's something that we want to be a part of, even if there are risks, because if we don't say yes to it, other jurisdictions will. Their economies are going to benefit. Ours won't. We have no choice but to go along with it, and I say bring it on.
By the way, and I'm kind of with you on that, but I should point out, as I said off the top, Waymo has been, doing their business in a lot of American cities. It's not as if they're just coming to Canada saying, well, we hope it works. We know the technology has been out there for a while. It's only getting better all the time, and it's done fairly well where it's been rolled out, is it not?
It absolutely has. So San Francisco, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Austin, Texas, and for the most part, the data has been very encouraging, really safe, really convenient. It interacts really well with other human, piloted regular vehicles like you and I would drive, as well as pedestrians and cyclists and other things that you come across on the urban street. There have been, some embarrassing headlines. There was a power failure in San Francisco, and they blocked up a bunch of intersections after that. There was one case where they all sort of returned to this cul-de-sac, and they blocked up an entire neighborhood because of a software glitch. So here and there's some issues, but for the most part, the headlines are much more benign than what we see for regular cars, which is every night there's carnage. A couple kilometers from my house last night, a distracted driver hit another driver head on and ended up in a ditch on fire. And that was total human error in the middle of perfect weather. So automated technology doesn't do this. Humans do. And I think it's a good thing to get that on the road sooner rather than later, so we can start developing the autonomous technology or economy here in Canada sooner or before other countries do.
Carmi, has Toronto said how long this will last before they make a decision?
We're not hearing. They've said that they're in conversation. So the mayor's office, Olivia Chow, says that they are. They've been advised they're going to be applying for it. No timeline on this yet, but I would expect likely we'll know within the next couple of years. I'd be surprised if it takes more than a year or two to start seeing a few pilot vehicles on the road there.
Carmi Levy, CTV Tech Analyst. Carmi, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
'Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice. Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers.
I think we need something new.
Discover iHeart New Music. Always fresh, always first. Stream now on the free iHeartRadio app.